Hey, Robbie, how are you, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
jump in with us. Perfect.
Okay.
Robbie Hummel from BTN, former Purdue Boilermaker. Actually enjoyed talking to Matt yesterday. He's one of my favorites to talk to. He's just always has his finger on the pulse of the kids in the league.
Totally.
He's you can tell that he cares about the kids, the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
That he's a very unselfish, seemingly to me, coach.
Well, I think he has the perspective of a student athlete because he was one. He played at Purdue and has been the coach there for a long time. So I think he's got a really good feel. And on top of that, I think he's really comfortable in his own skin. So he's okay with saying what he feels. And I think he's got really good perspective on all things college sports. I think he wants what's best for the student athlete. He's all for NIL. I think he's had some really good opinions on the transfer stuff with the transfer portal. That unfortunately maybe weren't put to use because we kind of have what we have now. But I think he on the issues of the game, he is really, really good to talk to.
As mentioned earlier in the show, it's funny. I said, I don't know Matt personally. I've been around him a lot, but I know Jeff Brom. I'm from Southern Indiana, so I knew him from Louisville, like him. So there's that IU. Can't have that going. But I bring that up because so many IU fans enjoy your coverage of games, which is funny because normally it'd be, these Soxies from Purdue.
The rivalry runs deep.
It's just, you're not allowing that to happen, man.
Well,
and congratulations on the game. You do a tremendous job.
Thank you very much. I just think that when I call games, my goal is to enhance the game for the viewer. And that's really what I'm trying to do going in. And whether it's Indiana or Purdue or Illinois or the Valpo Crusaders, not the Crusaders, whatever they are now, that's another story.
Your Valpo days are over, my friend.
I know. I was a ball boy for Homer Drew back in the day.
So, really? Yeah, seriously?
Yeah. I was
ball boy for Homer Drew.
Yeah,
wow.
So that was like a little bit post Bryce. So right after he hit the shot, I was a ball boy for 4 or 5 years. But whoever I'm calling the game for, I'm trying to do the best job I can. And I think, I have a goal as a commentator for my job to keep moving up the ladder and trying to get better and better games. And honestly, I just want to see good basketball. And on top of that, you develop relationships with not only the coaches but the players. Armand Hill was a guy that came in and he's on Indiana staff now, and he really helped us with some 3-3 stuff when I was playing a couple years ago. So I know him decently well, and I think the world of the guy, So I think when you develop those relationships, when I was playing at Purdue, we wanted to kill Indiana. And it's the same for the Indiana players feeling towards Purdue. But I think at the end of the day, I want to see good basketball, and I want to see good games, and I think Indiana's going to be a big part of that this year.
Dustin, you'll have to relay your questions through me, but so if you have one, because he can't hear you, you have a question, right. I'm sure. Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com.
Well, I mean, I guess my question would be, when he started this endeavor, did he ever envision having this type of popularity? I mean, he and Jason Benetti are considered two of the best, or the best combination in college basketball right now. I mean, is that something he would have envisioned?
And before I said BTN, you moved on to ESPN. Are you both?
I do both, yeah. So
okay.
I'll do 30 games for Big Ten Network, and I'll do 30 games for ESPN.
Now with that split, how's that going to work out?
It's great. I've done that my entire career. So now my numbers were lower. I think my first year I did 20 games at ESPN, and I did 15 at BTN. And it's just kind of grown. And last year
they want you, man.
Well, last year it was a lot. I did 85 games between the NCAA tournament with Westwood One and the Big Ten Network and ESPN. But I'm thankful that they want me to do the games.
What happens when the ESPN starts pulling you more, man?
You know what? They
Fox has got to get in on the action. What's Fox waiting on?
I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
Fox, what are you waiting on?
But the thing is that they both, Big Ten Network and ESPN, have really worked well together. I'll give them a lot of credit. They've kind of seen each other's schedules, and we've balanced it out, and they've been really good to work with.
How fun is it for you to do this as a career? Firstly, not being that far removed from playing. Jordan Hulls just came in as a coach.
I saw that.
So, literally almost walked off the court.
Right.
I got on a plane and came and started this job.
Yep.
But it has to be a blast for you to do this as a job.
Yeah, and I think every player deep down that played professionally has a little bit of a fear of the 9 to 5 because you've never done it, right? So
Don't like it.
I think trying to avoid that, and look, it's a job. The travel can be a job, but when you're at the game, you're calling a game, and you're at Assembly Hall, or you're at Mackey Arena, or the Breslin Center, or wherever in this league, it's not a job. You're very fortunate to get to do that and see high level basketball. So I'm incredibly thankful they let me do it, and I hope they'll let me do it for the next 30 years because I'd love to do it.
Dustin asked earlier, did you expect in your wildest imaginations when you started of the popularity you have, the success you've had, and you said more games keep coming, and it just keeps going. When you first started, I'm sure it was like, whoa.
My first game, I did it was Purdue and somebody not very good. I should remember who it was, but I don't. And at halftime, I thought, I want to quit. I hate this. I'm saying things that I'm like, doesn't make sense. That's not what I wanted to say. My heart felt like it was beating at 130 beats a minute. I mean, it was just like, it was overwhelming. And the second half went better. And my second game was pretty good. And actually, my third game of my broadcasting career was with ESPN in the Bahamas with Carl Ravitch, Purdue, Tennessee. So it was like, luck guy had those first two games to kind of work the kinks out of the armor there, because it was like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. But I think it all comes with repetition. The more you do it, the more comfortable you are. And it's been a really fun couple-year journey to now, you're starting to work with guys like Brandon Gaudin does NFL games. He's the voice of Madden. Kevin Kugler's doing NFL games. Jason Benetti is now at Fox, and he's as good as anybody. So I just think I've been really fortunate to work with play-by-play guys who are excellent and do a really good job of making me look good. But it's an awesome job. I'm just so thankful I get to do it.
Play-by-play guys are so crucial to setting up what you're doing and staying out of the way of what you're trying to do, because their job is to call the game. Your job is to analyze and point things out that the viewers don't see, don't understand, or whatever the case may be. And the relationships between guys, Dustin mentioned Jason Benetti, and one of the great combinations, but that has to be so important, knowing you're with someone who you have a great relationship.
Yeah, well, it's a team effort. It's not just the play-by-play guy and the analyst. You've got a whole truck doing the game, whether it's the graphics guys, the producers, the directors.
I working the truck, baby.
Yeah, so you know all about it. But I think that's what's cool about doing TV too, is that it does have a team aspect, and when you play basketball, it's a team sport. So there's some really cool aspects there. But you're playing off your play-by-play guy. They have to do a good job of listening to the analyst, and the analyst has to do a good job of listening to their play-by-play guy. I think that there's some broadcasts you watch, and you're like, man, these guys are kind of repeating each other, and they're not necessarily listening to each other. They're just kind of coexisting. And I think the really good crews, whether it's football, basketball, whatever sport, they're excellent at listening, and they do a great job of playing off one another.
And the preparation that goes into each game, because each game is different. The players may be the same the next time, but they've played X amount of games since then. The stats have changed. How much preparation? That is not fun, but
but again, you're watching basketball, so it could be worse. I keep a notebook on every team I see. The top 10 players that would be on the scout report, and Synergy is an incredible tool. It really is. And I'm fortunate that I have been able to use that. But I just keep this notebook of every player, what they like to do. And if those guys maybe throughout the season, Malachi Branham's a great example. I saw Ohio State in November, December, and by the time late January came around, I had to go back and rewatch Branham's clips and be like, well, he's now doing this, this, and this. And early in the season, he wasn't doing any of that. But for the most part, you see a team once, I can get a pretty good feel, I think, for what guys want to really do, because you've got all these clips loaded up where you can watch 50 clips of Trace Jackson Davis or Race Thompson. And for college players, I think if you watch enough clips, you can get a pretty good idea of what they want to do. Pro-wise, the skill level is different. You might need to go back and watch more or change your opinion of that. But for the college game, that's pretty good. And then I'll watch the team's last game. And if the two teams that are playing have already played once, it's important to, I think, go back and watch that game. See how they're guarding pick and roll. How'd they guard the post? Did they trap? Did they stunt? And I just think that adds value to the broadcast.
Speaking of Trace Jackson Davis, Indiana, Hunter Dickinson, Michigan, Purdue, even though they haven't been mentioned much, they got I coined a new phrase this morning. They have Mount Edie.
And a really good front court at that.
And well, yesterday someone asked Mike Woodson when there was breakout sessions. I was sitting there. Who's the toughest player in the league? They get to prepare for. He goes, that big guy at Purdue. And they said, why? He's 20 foot tall.
He's massive.
He said he's 20 foot tall.
We did something with him for ESPN yesterday, and actually he had to sit because the mic wouldn't go high enough. He's 7'4". I mean,
I
he
told you
makes me
guys
feel
earlier.
tiny.
I walked over at the breakout session just to walk over there. It was like I was going over to see Andre the Giant.
Yeah, he's enormous.
But oh my God! So let's talk basketball. Just we only have a couple of minutes, but Indiana mentioned as a favorite. I think that's a lot because of Trace Jackson Davis, but they have questions. Michigan definitely has questions.
I think everybody has questions.
Illinois has questions because they brought in a lot of transfers, but man, don't sleep on them.
Sure.
Purdue is not getting mentioned much, but I'm like, why?
Yeah,
They got Mount
no talent.
Edie and a ton of solid players,
Sure.
and Michigan State too. I think there's 5 teams that
No, I agree.
at least belong in that conversation.
Yep, and I think you have to put Indiana at the top because of everything they return. The Trace coming back is such a boost. But at the same time, they were a team that was on the bubble for a lot of February and made a great run, had 2 really good games at the Big Ten tournament to solidify themselves in the NCAA tournament. Shooting is the question. And I just, it's so hard for me to believe that that's been the case at Indiana because I grew up in Valparaiso. I understand that in that state, my 4th grade teacher prided himself on being able to shoot
It's blowing
jumps.
everyone's mind. It's
So-
down to free throws.
No,
They couldn't even
I
free
know
throws.
free throws and 3-point shots, but you lose Parker Stewart. He was their most consistent 3-point shooter. Who can spread the floor? You know, I really like Xavier Johnson. I think in pick and roll, he can be a problem. He can get by people, he can get to the basket. But is that floor going to be so shrunk because guys aren't making shots? But you do know this with Indiana, they are going to guard. They were an excellent defensive team last year. The teams you mentioned, Illinois, Matt Meyer and Terrence Shannon are big-time players. They're big-time talents. The question is, how do they fit together? Can they gel them with freshmen? That team is going to look so different. And I think the way that Brad's going to coach them is going to be night and day. Because you don't have Kofi, and they have all this length. I think they might press some. I think they're going to pressure the ball like crazy, use that length. I think they'll switch a lot. But it's going to be a learning experience getting 8 new guys into that rotation. You mentioned Purdue. It starts with Edie. Their front court's really good. The questions are the back court. Who's the point guard? Is Brandon Newman a guy that can kind of get back to what he did as a freshman? Last year he fell out of the rotation and never could really find his way back. Michigan, huge question marks in the backcourt. You have Hunter Dickinson. Everybody's got questions. I think it's one of those years where you lose 3 lottery picks and 4 first-round picks. There's going to be questions. And that's kind of what we're dealing with right now in the Big Ten.
Can I believe Robbie Hummel? I cannot thank you enough,
no
man.
problem.
I
Thanks for having
greatly
me on.
appreciate it. I've been wanting to have you on for so long. Like I said, you're very, very popular, and everyone loves when you're on the call, man. So thanks
Thank
a lot for coming by, and
Appreciate
I
that.
look forward to hopefully talking to you again during the season, especially when you're coming down to Bloomington.
Sounds good. Love
Have
it.
a good one.
Awesome.
Robbie
Thank
Hummel joining us here at the 2022 Big Ten Basketball Media Days from the Target Center.